The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, the kind of cold, gray rain that made Seattle feel like a city built out of fog and regret. Daniel Harris stood by the kitchen window, his coffee untouched, staring out at the slick pavement reflecting the dull light of dawn. His wife, Emily, was behind him, the sound of her footsteps soft but quick, too quick, as she moved through the kitchen. "Morning," she said without looking at him, reaching for her travel mug. Her voice was clipped, efficient, the way people talk when their minds are elsewhere. "Morning," Daniel replied. He watched her pour coffee into the mug, add a splash of almond milk, and seal the lid. She didn't make eye contact. She hadn't for weeks. Emily used to hum while she got ready for work, always some indie song she picked up from Spotify or an old folk tune her mother loved. Now, silence filled the space between them like static, heavy and awkward. "You've been leaving early lately," Daniel said finally. "Yeah," she replied, glancing at her phone. "Deadlines. We're behind on the new account." Daniel nodded, though something inside him stirred, that quiet, uneasy voice that whispers when something isn't right. He tried to shake it off. He was being paranoid. He'd been under pressure too, the layoffs at his firm had left him with double the work and half the motivation. They were both tired. Everyone in Seattle was tired. Still, when Emily leaned in to kiss him goodbye, she only brushed his cheek, quick, distant, like she was touching a stranger. Then she was gone, the sound of her car fading into the drizzle. Daniel stood alone in the quiet house. For the first time in 10 years of marriage, it didn't feel like home. The Harisas lived in a quiet neighborhood north of Lake Union, where the houses had narrow porches and the air smelled faintly of wet cedar. They had married young, Daniel was 24, Emily 23, back when life was still about potential, not endurance. Now they were 34 and 33, with a mortgage, a golden retriever named Max, and an invisible wall between them. It had started with small things, missed dinners, unread texts, excuses about late meetings. Then came the emotional distance, the kind you can't measure but you can feel, like the air going cold between two people who used to be warm. On a Thursday night, Daniel noticed Emily's new perfume. It wasn't the one he'd bought her for Christmas. "You smell different," he said as they were getting ready for bed. She froze for a second, then smiled, too quickly. "It's just a sample from work. Don't overthink it." He nodded, but something about the way she avoided his eyes made his chest tighten. That night, she turned away from him in bed, scrolling through her phone under the covers. The faint blue glow lit up her face, beautiful, expressionless, distant. Daniel lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering when they had stopped touching each other without hesitation. It wasn't one thing that made him suspicious. It was everything. The way she smiled at her phone. The way she guarded it now, like a secret. The way she suddenly cared about her appearance again, gym every morning, new clothes, a brightness that had nothing to do with him. One Sunday morning, Emily told him she had to meet a client downtown. But she dressed in jeans and a casual top, not her usual office outfit. "You're meeting a client dressed like that?" Daniel asked, trying to sound casual. She laughed, too loud. "It's a relaxed meeting. Not everything's formal, Dan." He nodded. But when she left, he waited exactly 15 minutes before following. It was raining again. Of course it was. He drove downtown, his heart pounding in a rhythm that felt like guilt. He wasn't sure what he expected to find, maybe nothing, maybe proof that he was losing his mind. But when he saw her, standing under a coffee shop awning with another man, the air went out of his lungs. The man was tall, maybe late 30s, dark hair, expensive-looking coat. He leaned in close when she spoke, and Emily laughed, a real laugh, the kind Daniel hadn't heard in months. Daniel sat in his car across the street, rain streaking his windshield, watching the woman he loved look like she belonged to someone else. They stood too close. She touched his arm. And when the man leaned down to kiss her, not long, just a soft, knowing kiss, Daniel's entire world tilted sideways. He didn't confront her that night. Or the next. Instead, he went through the motions of life, work, chores, polite conversation, while something inside him cracked, slowly and quietly. Every smile she gave him felt false. Every "love you" she said before leaving felt rehearsed. He told himself to wait, to be sure. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it was just a friend. Maybe. But he'd seen the kiss. And yet, he couldn't bring himself to say it aloud. Because once he did, there would be no going back. Instead, Daniel started changing too. He stopped texting her during the day. He stayed late at work. He started running again, long, angry runs through the cold Seattle streets, where he could be alone with the truth he wasn't ready to face. One evening, he found himself at Kerry Park, staring at the skyline glowing against the rain clouds. The Space Needle shimmered in the mist, beautiful and distant, just like his marriage. He thought about calling her. About asking where she was. But he didn't. He just stood there in the drizzle, hands in his pockets, trying to remember when love had started to feel like drowning. 2 weeks later, the proof came. Emily was in the shower when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Daniel shouldn't have looked. He knew that. But he did. The name on the screen, Mark, work project. A text preview. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Daniel stared at it until his hands shook. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. When Emily came out, wrapped in a towel, smiling faintly, he looked at her like he was seeing a stranger. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he lied. "Just tired." She kissed his cheek and went to the closet. He watched her pick out a dress, one he hadn't seen her wear in years. That night, Daniel sat in the dark living room with a bottle of whiskey and the kind of silence that feels heavier than sound. He wanted to scream. He wanted to break something. But instead, he just drank, staring at the photo on the mantel, their wedding picture, both of them laughing under the sunlight of a different life. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Emily said she was going out with coworkers. Daniel said okay. Then he followed her. He parked 2 blocks from the restaurant and watched from the shadows as she walked in, and there he was again. Mark. Daniel watched them through the window as they talked, laughed, leaned close. Then they left together. Hand in hand. He followed them to a hotel near Pike Place Market. When they went inside, Daniel sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just sat there for hours, watching the rain blur the neon signs outside, until the whiskey he'd brought numbed everything inside him. The next morning, Emily came home. Her hair was messy. Her makeup smudged. She smelled like someone else's cologne. Daniel was sitting at the table, calm, empty, a man hollowed out by truth. "Where were you?" he asked quietly. She froze. "I told you, I stayed with." "Don't lie to me," he said. His voice was low, steady, terrifyingly calm. She swallowed hard. Her lips trembled. "Daniel, please." "I followed you," he said. "I saw you. At the hotel." For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of rain against the windows. Then Emily's shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Daniel laughed, a sound sharp and bitter. "Sorry? That's what you have to say? I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely. You were so distant lately, Anne. Don't you dare blame me for this," he snapped, slamming his hand on the table. The sound echoed through the kitchen. "You cheated on me, Emily. You lied. 4 months." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I still love you." "No," Daniel said, standing. "You love what I used to be." What we used to have. But that's gone. He walked out before she could say another word. For weeks, the house was quiet. Emily moved into a friend's apartment downtown. Daniel stayed in the house with Max, surrounded by ghosts of their life together. He found her things everywhere, her hairbrush, her books, the cardigan she used to wear on cold mornings. Every item felt like a wound. The divorce papers came in early December. He signed them without reading. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Emily had asked to come by for some of her belongings. Daniel agreed. When she arrived, she looked smaller somehow, pale, nervous. "Can we talk?" she asked. He shrugged. "Talk." "I ended it with Mark," she said quietly. "It wasn't real. I was confused. I miss you." Daniel studied her face, the woman he'd loved, the woman who'd broken him. Then he smiled faintly. "I know." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "I already told him," Daniel said softly. "I sent him the photos. You two leaving the hotel. His wife has them now." Emily's face went white. "You didn't." "I did," he said, standing. "You took everything from me. I just gave it back." She stared at him, trembling. "You ruined him." Daniel's voice was cold. "No. You both did that yourselves." Months later, spring came to Seattle. The rain slowed. The skies cleared. Daniel walked Max by the lake every morning. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. Sometimes he still thought about Emily, not with anger anymore, but with a dull ache, like touching an old scar. One afternoon, he found her name in his inbox, an email with no subject line. "I hope you're okay. I think about you every day. I'm sorry for everything." He didn't reply. He just sat there for a long while, watching the sunlight spill through the window, listening to the city hum outside, alive, indifferent, endless. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt free.